after a bus drops from a bridge into a river. Emergency services officials in Spain say bad weather may have caused the horrific crash. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. strictly monitors relief operations for flood victims. Mobile users report glitches on first day of SIM card registration. Department of Health proposes to extend COVID-19 state of calamity. Blizzard of the century leaves dozens dead in United States. And China lifts mandatory quarantine for incoming travelers. The Office of Civil Defense reports 13 individuals have died from heavy flooding in Visayas and Mindanao. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is strictly monitoring the government's relief efforts to the affected areas. Eden Santos reports.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is strictly monitoring the relief operations for flash flood victims due to the shear line in some parts of Visayas and Mindanao. The president is monitoring the situation from Malacanang and conducting meetings with officials. The government is distributing relief goods and cash assistance to the calamity victims through the field offices of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, in northern Mindanao and eastern Visayas since the flooding occurred last December 25. According to Diego Agustin Mariano, head of the Joint Information Center of the Office of Civil Defense, around 44,282 families or 166,357 individuals were affected by the calamity. These families are from Mimaropa or Region 4B, Regions 5, 8, 9, 10, and Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, where 10,536 families or 45,337 individuals remain in evacuation centers. Authorities say 13 individuals died with 6 injured, while 23 others are reported missing. OCD data shows 534 households were affected by the calamity, which includes 165 totally damaged and 369 partially damaged homes. The agriculture sector also reported damage of more than 59 million pesos. Infrastructure damage was estimated at more than 14.5 million pesos. Eden Santos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, for the SIM Card Registration Act took effect this Tuesday, December 27. Under the IRR, mobile subscribers have 180 days to register their SIM or the subscriber identity module card. Mobile subscribers are required to divulge in the registration forms their name, date of birth, gender, and home address, and provide a government-issued ID with their photo. According to the National Telecommunications Commission, there are around 180 million SIM cards currently used in the country. All telco subscribers who would fail to comply with a SIM card registration or those who will refuse to register their SIM cards would face deactivation or possible penalty. The Department of Information and Communications Technology has warned the public to only register their SIM card on legitimate websites or telecoms companies to avoid being victimized by phishing scams.
Mobile subscribers have encountered various issues and glitches on the first day of SIM card registration. These include a failure to access telco websites. Randy Bernardino reports.
Some prepaid mobile subscribers had a hard time registering their SIM cards on the first day of the mandatory SIM card registration. Complaints include the failure of subscribers to access the official website of their telecom providers. Even if they successfully access the website, mobile subscribers experienced slow connection and could not immediately receive the one-time PIN sent by telcos to continue the registration. A team member of Net25 News was able to submit the requirements, but after verifying his cell phone number and repeating the registration process, the message null was displayed.
Hindi man lumalabas ang ano ba to? Ng driver's license?
Oops, null. Ayun na, ayaw ko na. Isip mo. Ayan, ayaw na. Kasi nag-back na eh.
Another team member of Net25 News successfully registered using the app of another telco.
Tatlo o apat na try. Medyo mahirap pero naka-registered naman.
To register a prepaid number, a mobile subscriber is required to submit his or her mobile number where the one-time PIN or OTP will be sent for verification. Once the number is verified, the mobile user will fill in information asked, like name, birth date, gender, and address. Mobile subscribers are also required to submit a valid government ID and a selfie.
Pag naging successful yan, ito ang lalabas naman. Registration complete. Kasama rin yung reference number mo. May link na lalabas kung meron ka pang isa pang number na kailangan mong i-register once na naging successful.
Netizens logged various complaints on the SIM card registration, with some posting their experience on social media. They described the system as a failure. The hashtags SIM registration, smart, globe, and bad gateway trended on Twitter. There are those who were able to register but described the experience as a hassle. Others could register one prepaid SIM but failed for a different SIM on another network. One mobile user urged fellow subscribers to postpone the registration and wait for the telco to fix the system first, since they have 180 days to register. Telcos apologized and asked for understanding for the technical glitches experienced on the first day of SIMReg. Smart Communications said the delay and glitches were due to the high volume of registrants. It advised subscribers to try registering on another day, as they assured subscribers that they are fixing the system. Globe Telecoms also advised its subscribers to register on another day. Mobile subscribers have until April 26 to register their SIM cards. Meanwhile, Dito Telecoms urged their users to ensure that they're using the latest app and retry the registration process after a while. The Department of Information and Communications Technology and the National Telecommunications Commission had earlier said the first 14 days of the SIM registration is only a pilot test run and would continue improving the process.
Of course, like all implementation ng mga batas, magkakaroon ng konting fine-tuning process. We want to perfect the process.
It entails an ongoing process of oversight and adjustment, as we acknowledge that the PTE's respective SIM registration systems should be continuously evolving and adaptable to whatever concerns they may subsequently encounter.
Randy Bernardino from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, has launched a 24/7 complaint center for SIM card registration concerns and related issues. The center would act as a support system through hotline number 1326. The complaint center will be under the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, or CICC, an attached agency of DICT. The DICT considers the first 2 weeks of SIM card registration as the test period due to expected glitches and technical issues. For now, SIM card registration is online until January. By February, telcos are expected to register subscribers in their stores and branches. The DICT will continue to release announcements on relevant information on SIM card registration.
The Department of Health has recommended to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to extend the public health declaration due to COVID-19. DOH officer in charge Maria Rosario Vergeire said the department already submitted a memorandum to the Office of the President requesting an extension to the state of calamity declaration. She added that they are now waiting for a response from the President on their recommendation. The public health emergency declaration is set to expire on December 31st. This would mean the DOH would lose its different response strategies against COVID-19. These include the inoculation of COVID-19 vaccines, the validity of emergency use authorization of COVID-19 drugs, and the emergency hiring and allowance of healthcare workers. The request was made after a bill creating the Philippine Center for Disease Prevention and Control was not enacted in time. The center would continue the country's programs for COVID-19 response.
Malacanang has announced the appointment of Undersecretary for Special Projects Edu Punay as the officer in charge of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD. Punay's appointment was stated in a memorandum signed by Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, dated December 23 and issued today, December 27. DSWD Secretary Erwin Tulfo failed to get the reappointment of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. after the Commission on Appointments bypassed his nomination due to questions on his citizenship. The palace instructed Punay to continue the current projects, programs, and activities of the DSWD, including the procurement and disbursement of funds. Excluded duties are entering into agreements and other contracts involving new programs and activities.
The Department of Agriculture is not considering importation of onion despite prices of the commodity now reaching 520 pesos per kilo. DA Deputy Spokesperson Rex Esto Perez said importation of onion at this time would pave the way for smuggling of agricultural products. He added that the peak season for harvesting onions is in January of 2023. At the Laging Handa Public Forum, Esto Perez added that the DA has not released any projections on the volume of onions that the country can produce in January. Prices of onion per kilo reached 500 pesos per kilo at Mega Q Mart in Cubao, Quezon City. Vendors said they could not buy cheap prices of onions in Divisoria, where they usually bought their products.
Meanwhile, the Department of Agriculture is mulling to import 2.5 million metric tons of rice for 2023. This is lower than the 3.5 million metric tons imported by the country in 2022. Agriculture Secretary Mercedita Zumbilya said the rice importation is due to damages brought by recent calamities to rice yields. She said the Bureau of Plant Industry was directed to issue the sanitary and phytosanitary import clearances under the rice tariffication law. Zumbilya said following the process is needed to monitor the entry of imported rice in the country.
The House of Representatives has warned online sellers from privately messaging consumers on the prices of their commodities. House Minority Leader Marcelino Libanan said online retailers and sellers violate the law by hiding their product prices and instead send them to customers through direct messages. He added that the law mandates products to have a price tag visible to customers, whether sellers are online or in physical stores. Under the Consumer Act of 1992, Libanan said prices of commodities should not be more than what is stated on the price tag. The law also provides that prices should be transparent to protect consumers from any abuse. Libanan called on the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, to ensure that it strictly implements the price tag requirement, especially for online sellers.
Coming up, blizzard of the century leaves nearly 50 dead across the U.S. China's Health Commission lifts quarantine for inbound travelers. And Japan requires COVID-19 testing for all Chinese arrivals. Mata ng Agila International. We'll be right back after the short break. emergency news here on Mata ng Agila International. Emergency crews in New York scrambled to rescue marooned residents from what authorities call the blizzard of the century. The relentless storm has left at least 25 dead in New York and is causing U.S. holiday travel chaos. Blizzard conditions continue to prevail in parts of the U.S. Northeast. These are stubborn remnants of a massive sprawl of extreme weather that gripped the country over several days. This has caused widespread power outages, travel delays, and at least 47 deaths across 9 states. In New York, authorities have described ferocious conditions.
We have been through a lot of wars together, and this blizzard is the one for the ages. Certainly it is the blizzard of the century. And we are here to talk about our collaborative approach to dealing with this crisis, and it is a crisis. And as much as we can see the skies right now, we know that the storm is coming back. We're expecting another 6 to 12 inches. And in the south towns, the southern part of Erie County, a little bit south of here, they had 30 to 40 inches of snow overnight.
In Buffalo, hours-long whiteouts leave bodies in vehicles and other snow banks. Emergency personnel have been going car to car searching for more motorists, whether alive or dead.
I want to make it very clear that we need people to stay off the roads. You will still get stuck out there. Many streets in the city of Buffalo are still impassable. We have plows on mains and secondaries. We're into residential streets now, but the driving conditions are still very difficult. The driving ban is still in place. Please do not drive in the city of Buffalo.
A New York State official confirms some people are trapped in cars for more than 2 days as the monster storm continues to batter North America. A local from Buffalo confirms some of the trapped victims died inside their cars. Some also died from heart problems while shoveling or blowing snow. State Governor Kathy Hochul says many emergency vehicles had been unable to reach worst-hit areas. They also got stuck in the snow themselves. Reports say more victims are expected to be discovered once melting snowdrifts reveal the trapped vehicles. Meteorologists also warn up to 9 more inches or 23 centimeters of the storm is expected in parts of the state through Tuesday. Forecasters say the winter storm will ease off in the next few days, but they strongly advise avoiding travel unless essential.
A number of people have been arrested in the city of Buffalo in northeastern New York. According to Buffalo Police Commissioner Joseph Gramaglia, the arrested were looting stores during the heavy winter storm that swept across the U.S. Gramaglia said officers responded to several reports, made arrests, and intervened in some altercations. He added they assisted one store in boarding up its windows. Mayor Byron Brown of Buffalo said the people who are out looting while others lose their lives in this harsh winter storm are just absolutely reprehensible. Brown went on to say these people were the lowest of the low, taking advantage of a disaster and the suffering of many people in the area.
China confirms it will remove mandatory quarantine on arrival. The change comes after years of strict virus controls. As per National Health Commission spokesperson Mi Feng, they will no longer carry out quarantine measures for controlling infectious diseases for inbound travelers and cargo. Feng says patients infected with COVID-19 will be admitted based on the classification and level of infection. Medical policies will also adjust in real time. In addition, PCR tests will only be conducted based on the willingness of an individual. Opponents argue the last change may lead to an increase in the number of new coronavirus infections and public panic.
The Japanese government will require COVID-19 testing upon arrival for travelers from China beginning December 30. This is due to the surge of COVID cases in China. The measure applies to mainland Chinese residents and those who have visited China within the last 7 days. Visitors with positive test results must quarantine for 7 days. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida announced the decision Tuesday. Local COVID-19 outbreaks in China reached an all-time high in December.
Peru's Office of the Ombudsman reported Tuesday that the death toll from the wave of unrest sweeping the country has risen to 28 in the last week. The report states that 22 civilians were killed in clashes and 6 civilians were killed in traffic accidents as a result of events related to the blocking measures. Furthermore, the report shows that 661 people were injured during the riots, including 371 civilians and 290 police officers. Protests against the interim government erupted across Peru after the former country's leader, Pedro Castillo, was impeached and removed after attempting to dissolve Congress. Within 2 hours of the impeachment vote, Prime Minister Dina Boluarte took the oath of office as the country's new president, vowing to serve out the remainder of Castillo's term until July of 2026. Boluarte proposed holding an early presidential election in 2024 in response to the protests. She did not, however, rule out rescheduling the election to December of 2023. The protesters demand an immediate presidential election as well as the dissolution of the country's parliament.
The death toll has risen to 7 after a bus in Spain plunged into a river on the weekend. Rescuers pulled the body of a woman from the Leras River Monday. The rescue or the search resumed after a passenger who survived told officials a friend she had been traveling with was not on the list of victims. A helicopter spotted the body in the river. The crash happened Saturday when a bus crashed through a guardrail and fell 30 meters into the river. Spanish authorities say the driver survived and tested negative for drugs and alcohol. Weather conditions were poor that night with heavy rain falling. The cause of the accident is under investigation.
Forest officials say 15 people were injured in a leopard attack in Assam's Jorhat district. Initial investigation says the leopard came out of a forest located within the institute. The animal started attacking people without provocation. A police official says the leopard's behavior was erratic as they don't usually attack humans. He adds the victims were immediately brought to a nearby hospital. Meanwhile, forest officials are tracking the leopard. They advise locals to stay indoors to avoid the animal.
Rohingya refugees receive emergency treatment after their boat lands on the coast of Indonesia's western Aceh province. Authorities say the boat carried 200 people, including women and children. One refugee says they come from the largest Bangladesh Rohingya refugee camp. They are hoping that Indonesian police or people will give them the opportunity of education. He says Myanmar and Bangladesh did not provide them such an opportunity. A doctor says the refugees are given IV drips because they suffer from severe dehydration. Some children have been vomiting. UN agencies and human rights groups have called on states in the region for urgent help. Several boats carrying Rohingya migrants were reported adrift for weeks in the Indian Ocean.
An Iranian foreign minister rebuts Ukraine's allegations that Tehran is delivering drones to Russia, saying the allegations are irresponsible and untrue. Iran ministry spokesman Nasser Kanaani says making accusations against various parties won't help Ukraine. Earlier, Mikhail Podolyak, an aide to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, accused Iran of planning to boost missile and drone supplies to Russia. Podolyak posted on Twitter, urging the international community to move from a non-working sanction against Iran to more destructive tools. Kanaani rejects Podolyak's claims, arguing Tehran is not a party to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. However, he adds Iran is ready to assist Moscow and Kyiv in resolving their crisis in a peaceful manner. Major General Mohammad Hossein Bagheri, Chief of Staff of Iran's armed forces, echoes Kanaani's sentiments. He clarifies that Moscow's Geran-2 drones are not Iran-made weapons. Bagheri also insists the U.S. reports about Tehran helping Moscow are part of psychological warfare.
Vice President of the Bundestag, Wolfgang Kubicki, says Germany is becoming a dysfunctional state. Kubicki observes Germans think their country fails to find a viable solution to address the current energy crisis. He warns Berlin's failure to resolve the present turmoil could ruin Germany's economy. He worries Germany is at risk of national bankruptcy if it continues to pursue policies of paying out money as part of the fight against the energy crisis. He says the inability of Bundeswehr armed forces to protect Germany is a challenge that requires immediate action. Otherwise, things will go wrong. Kubicki slammed Economy Minister Robert Habeck over expensive purchases of liquefied natural gas from Qatar, the UAE, and the U.S. He claims Habeck refused to mine cheaper shale gas in Germany for purely ideological reasons. He urges German authorities to revise their approach to nuclear power plants. The official says these plants should continue to operate while Berlin is facing an energy crisis.
Up next, Iran arrests 7 accused of inciting protests. Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen extends mandatory military service to 1 year. And Seoul military apologizes for not downing North Korea drones. Please stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will be back with more global news.
This town is in Old Dubai, and if you are into history and rich culture of a place, then this place is for you.
Working and doing business in Dubai, I see it's a friendly place and society is open and tolerant. And I think this is the main value, that the prevailing value here in Dubai, tolerance and respect.
Fashion is supposed to be borderless. You don't appreciate the work of a person because of his nationality.
Sabi nila, dito wala kang tapon. From puto kutsinta hanggang dulo, ikaw na yung mag-struggle mamili ngayon kung saan yung babalikan mo.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Sino ka? Nag-apply ako sa ibang bansa!
Iwan mo na ako.
Ay! Patawarin niyo ako! Sorry!
Nakatulog pala ako.
Hindi! Gising ka ng tulog. Hindi ka mahilig na ginagawa yan si Ate.
Dito!
Tulungan niyo ako! Hinuhuli nila ako. Wala naman ako kinalaman eh. Saka, wala akong ginagawa masama.
This portion is... has arrested 7 people it says are involved in a protest network with links to the UK. Unrest has gripped the country for nearly 100 days since the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. She died after being arrested by Iran's morality police for a dress code violation. An Islamic Guard statement says the 7 people arrested had been involved in planning and leading protests. Iran's foreign minister blasted Britain for its role in the so-called protest network, which he says has been involved in the recent riots. He says some of those arrested were dual nationals trying to escape the country. Last month, Iranian judiciary said that 40 foreigners, including dual nationals, had been arrested during the riots. Western governments have accused Tehran of employing a hostage-taking policy aimed at extracting concessions or to secure the release of Iranians held abroad.
An 18-year-old Afghan student endured Taliban taunts and insults. Over the weekend, she staged a solo protest against the ban on women attending university. According to protester Marwa, the country has become a prison for women after being barred from going to school, work, parks, and even public baths. On Sunday, Marwa courageously carried a placard that read Ikra, the Arabic word which means read. Marwa said she wanted to show the power of a single Afghan girl who can stand against oppression, adding that she would help other women to rise and defeat the Taliban. It was the first time in her life that she felt proud, strong, and powerful for standing firm by demanding her rights. Meanwhile, the Taliban says the restrictions are in place because women are not observing a strict Islamic dress code, including wearing hijabs.
Brazilian authorities have arrested a man involved in a bombing attempt at Brasilia International Airport. The suspect planted explosive devices 1 week ahead of the inauguration of incoming President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The 54-year-old suspect, identified as George Washington de Oliveira Sousa, planted the explosives to demonstrate support for outgoing President Jair Bolsonaro. He said it was intended to prevent the establishment of communism in Brazil and to prove an intervention of the armed forces. President Jair Bolsonaro failed to win in the recently held elections but has not conceded his loss. In protest, thousands of Bolsonaro supporters have protested the results, claiming the election was stolen. Bombing suspect Sousa says he was inspired by Bolsonaro to purchase the explosives to commit the crime at the airport. Brazilian authorities state they will carry out new searches around the area and will intensify security ahead of the upcoming inauguration.
A spokesman for former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has denied that Pence filed paperwork for a presidential run in 2024. Spokesman Devin O'Malley wrote on Twitter that former Vice President Mike Pence did not file to run for president. The statement came in response to a Twitter uproar when multiple news outlets made the allegation. The Washington Examiner reported that Pence had filed a statement of candidacy with the Federal Election Commission on Monday, a month after the former U.S. president announced his re-election campaign. O'Malley denied the reports, later suggesting that someone pranked journalists and pundits.
Democrats are calling for Representative-elect George Santos to resign his newly won Long Island House seat. Representative Ted Lieu claims Santos admitted to lying about his professional and educational background. The incoming vice chair of the House Democratic Caucus also warns that if Santos does not resign, they should call for a vote to expel him. Earlier, Santos admitted in an interview that he fabricated details about his resume. He says he made misleading claims about working for Goldman Sachs and Citigroup or earning a degree from New York Baruch College. In a separate interview, he declared that he is not a criminal and has done so much good work in his career.
Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen has announced an extension in mandatory military service from 4 months to 1 year. He says the island needs to prepare for the increasing threat from China. The president says the current military training service system cannot provide sufficient troops. The frequency of training is inadequate to cope with the rapidly changing combat situation. The extension of military service will satisfy the need for combat readiness. The decision to restore the 1-year compulsory military service for 2024 was made after 2 years of assessment and review, considering the demand for troops in the new strategic structure. The reimposed military service is applicable to male draftees born after January 1, 2005.
Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has fired Reconstruction Minister Kenya Akiba over allegations of mishandling political funds. Akiba also faces accusations of having ties to the Unification Church. The ex-minister denies all the complaints against him. He claims he resigned from his position, becoming the 4th minister to leave Kishida's cabinet in just 3 months. Kishida tapped former Reconstruction Minister Hiromichi Watanabe to be Akiba's replacement. Analysts say the Prime Minister's decision to remove Akiba was an attempt to heal his scandal-tainted cabinet. Some also observe Kishida wants to remove an administration soft spot that could stall upcoming parliamentary work on a key budget bill. This includes robust defense spending aimed at bolstering Japan's strike capability. Opposition members continue to criticize Kishida's decisions in choosing his staff. They claim Kishida should be held responsible for the bleak appointments.
South Korea's military has apologized for failing to shoot down 5 North Korean drones that crossed their shared border. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, or JCS, faced public criticism over its lack of military readiness. In a statement, JCS confirmed that 5 drones invaded South Korean airspace and 1 flew close to the capital. After firing warning shots and deploying jets and attack helicopters, they failed to shoot down the drones. JCS admits that while they can counter-attack drones that pose a real threat, there is a limit to their ability to detect and strike smaller spy drones. Reports say the drones appeared to have returned to the north despite a 5-hour operation to hunt them down. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol immediately ordered the acceleration of a plan to launch a drone unit. The group will carry out surveillance and reconnaissance operations on North Korea's key military facilities.
Today, Jane Kathleen Gregorio takes us on a journey to the sunny isles of the Caribbean, Nassau, Bahamas. Let's meet local residents, shop unique stores, and sample the authentic cuisine of the tropics.
Our story today brings us to the streets of Nassau, Bahamas.
As the capital of the Bahamas, Nassau is the largest city and sits on New Providence Island, where 70% of the Bahamanian population currently resides. Having the largest port, Nassau is a popular cruise ship stop and is known for its beaches, tourist attractions, and its trademark pastel-colored British colonial buildings and pink government house.
So far, the government is doing an excellent job so far. Our Prime Minister is doing an excellent job. He opened back up the country so far, get good jobs. People getting jobs back right now. We're trying to get back the economy back on track. Things are building back up. Nassau is one of the beauties. This is the capital. But when you go through all the Bahama Islands and sea, you see more natural resources, natural beauty. Every island has a different vibe, what we call a vibe. Different entity, different atmosphere. Nassau just different.
Nassau, as you can see, is a developing island, and we have a little of everything here in Nassau town. But you can see the industrial garden, go to Atlantis, or you can go to the fish fry, eat some nice Bahama food. We're just waiting for you. Come on down and see us, the Bahamian people in the Bahamas, live. Thank you very much, sister.
Just a few blocks walking distance from the cruise ship ports is the area known as Prince George Arcade, lined with vendors offering handcrafted souvenirs, arts, and even custom hair braids, as well as high-end boutiques selling couture clothing and jewelry.
We have a lot of art and craft stuff here. We made especially by hand.
For those seeking local cuisine, Bahamanian Cooking Restaurant offers a traditional taste of the tropics.
The name of the restaurant is called Bahamian Cooking. We try to do all Bahamian food, so everything that we do is from the Bahamian culture. It's basically what you would eat at your own home.
Right now, we are going to try a local favorite, which are peas and rice.
Similar to Spanish rice, but different types, different flavors, different spices, and it's very good, very, very good. This is the conch soup. It's almost like a bisque. Let's see. That is very good.
So this dessert is called guava duff, and it's made with guavas.
A bit of the tropical in it, maybe like a bread pudding similar, but with a lot more of an explosion of flavor. Very, very good.
Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Mata ng Agila International, Nassau, Bahamas. Trusted, connected, on point.
the sun came up, 13 Thai Eastern Saris cranes were released over a rippling reservoir in northeast Thailand. It's the latest effort to revive the almost extinct species in the kingdom. With an estimated 15,000 Saris cranes in the wild, the species is now classified as vulnerable. On December 25, the latest flock of cranes bred from the wetland and Eastern Saris Crane Conservation Center were released from large adapted boxes. It was the final moment for the researchers who carefully nurtured the cranes from hatching, gradually introducing them to the wild and then taking them to their final flight to freedom. The Nakhon Ratchasima Zoo established a learning center that teaches tourists and locals how to better care for the environment for birds to survive. According to the zoo director, changing villagers' attitudes is difficult. He believes that through communication, they can help hand in hand to protect the crane population.
Cyclists in Pakistan's second largest city are using their bicycles in a campaign against hazardous air pollution levels. Each week, about 100 adults and children cycle around landmarks in Lahore in a campaign to get people to leave their cars at home. Aside from hazardous air quality, residents endure abuse from drivers and the social stigma of their campaign. The group often requires police or a police escort to keep them safe in a city that has no dedicated bike lanes. They say smog is a huge concern in the city of more than 11 million people. It is an uphill battle. Pakistan is deeply conservative and cycling is considered inappropriate for women. Women who bike alone face harassment from men. Lahore is one of the world's most polluted cities. Aside from industrial pollutants, smoke from seasonal crop burning and vehicle fumes foul the air. The cyclists aim to use their campaign to promote clean air quality. Coming right up, Russia keeps amassing forex reserves. Tennis boss says Novak Djokovic will return to Australia. And MMFF announces top 4 films on Film Festival 2022. More international news coming your way when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Location. Okay. Sige po. Sige na po. Sige na ako. Oh no!
Pogi ba ako? Oh, hindi ako nahirapan eh. Dala ko na eh. Ay, problema kasi kapugihan ko eh.
Oh no!
Candy! Ayun! Ay!
Oh no! It's beer only! Sa Nest 25!
Tayo pag together, wala tayo pag together, let's get together. Sa Nest 25.
Alam mo, curious ako sa mga kasama mo sa office. Magkwento ka nga.
Si Mr. Chan. Bakit ang sama ng lahat ng lalaking gwapo? Masama siya at may mga masamang balak siya sa sarili niyang kapatid.
Pero, kaya ba ni Sanem i-deny ang kakaibang nararamdaman niya? Girl, baka naman kasi mali ang impression mo.
Ready ka na?
Sundan sa Daydreamer. Monday to Friday, 7:30 p.m. Dito lang.
The Bank of Russia has announced the country's foreign currency reserves now exceed $580 billion. The regulator attributes the milestone to a positive market revaluation. Western banks froze roughly half of Russia's foreign currency reserves. The move occurred in early March as part of Western sanctions over Ukraine's invasion. Russia's unfrozen reserves consist of gold, Chinese yuan assets, and foreign currency held within the country. Prior to the invasion, Russia's forex reserves reached a record $643.2 billion US dollars.
Facebook owner Meta has agreed to pay $725 million to settle a data breach action linked to political consultancy Cambridge Analytica. Lawyers say the proposed sum is the largest in a U.S. data privacy class action. The court ruling says Facebook released the personal data of its users to third parties without their consent. The class size is in the range of 250 to 280 million people. It represented all Facebook users in the U.S. during the class period, which ran from May 24, 2007 to December 22, 2022. However, the suggested settlement is subject to the approval of a federal judge in San Francisco. Reports say it is not clear how plaintiffs can claim their share of the settlement. A privacy and ethics researcher says an individual can claim $2 to $3 from the class suit. A further hearing on the settlement is due to take place on March 2, 2023.
Court of Justice of the European Union, or CJEU, says Amazon can be held accountable for intellectual property breaches over its advertisement of fake Louboutin shoes. CJEU's press office says users of the platform may be under the impression that it is Amazon and not the third-party seller who markets the Louboutin products in its name and on its behalf. Christian Louboutin filed a complaint against Amazon, saying third-party vendors of the site advertised similar red-soled high heels without his consent. Louboutin insists Amazon's fake promotions are misleading the public, and he says the ads potentially breach his EU trademark. Amazon says it will study the court's decision.
Israeli cybersecurity firm Hudson Rock discovers claims by a hacker who stole user data from 400 million Twitter users. The data allegedly contains emails and phone numbers and more personal information, including from senior World Health Organization officials. Hudson Rock says the list includes Google CEO Sundar Pichai. It also claims the hacker is selling user data on the dark web. Reports also say the hacker offered Twitter to pay for the stolen data.
UK's Intellectual Property Office, or IPO, says sharing passwords for online streaming services such as Netflix is against the law. Despite being against terms of service agreements, it is usual in the UK for people who do not live together to share their streaming service passwords. IPO argues that the practice of sharing passwords broke copyright law. It also says password sharing is both a criminal and civil matter. Depending on the circumstances, the IPO contends there could be a breach of contractual terms, fraud, or secondary copyright infringement. Yet it is up to Netflix to take action through the courts if required. Up to this point, Netflix has no comment if it would take any legal action in such cases.
Former world number one Novak Djokovic will return to Australia almost 1 year after he was deported for refusing COVID vaccination, the country's tennis boss said. Djokovic was initially banned from the country earlier this year for a period of 3 years due to his unvaccinated status. The Australian government lifted the ban this past November. It granted him a visa, allowing him to play in the next Australian Open in January of 2023. Tennis Australia Chief Executive Craig Tiley expects local fans will embrace Djokovic's return. On Sunday, the 9-peat Grand Slam champion will play in the Adelaide International as he warms up for the Open in Melbourne. The Metro Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, announced the top 4 films of the Metro Manila Film Festival 2022 on its opening day last December 25. Nadine Aguilar has the details.
Filipinos came back to cinemas to watch the entries of the 48th Metro Manila Film Festival, or MMFF. The announcement was posted on MMFF's official Facebook page, having a successful opening day. Based on first-day reports, included in the top 4 were films Partners in Crime, starring Vice Ganda and Ivana Alawi, Love You with an Accent with Coco Martin and Jody Santamaria, Deleter with Nadine Lustre, and Family Matters with Noel Trinidad, Liza Lorena, Noni Buencamino, Agot Isidro, Maylin Dizon, Nikki Valdez, JC Santos, and James Blanco. The rankings changed on the second day of the festival. Partners in Crime remained in the top spot, while Deleter ranked second, followed by Family Matters and Love You with an Accent in fourth. As expected, changes may occur in the rankings of the 8 entries even until the awards night, which will be held tonight at the New Frontier Theater, Quezon City. MMDA shared the total gross sales of the Metro Manila Film Festival starting from 2010 until 2019. The highest gross sales was in 2018 with a total gross of 1.6 billion pesos. The lowest record of total gross sales was in 2016 with only 413 million pesos. Nadine Aguilar, reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Congratulations. Now, before we end tonight's broadcast, let us ponder on a quote by Benjamin Franklin, an American inventor and political philosopher. He that can have patience can have what he will. Some things just take time, right?
It just makes you realize that patience can really take you far, 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 far in life.
And it makes you realize what you really want in life.
Exactly.
You are willing to wait for
That
it.
is so true.
And work hard for it.
Work hard for it, each at a time.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richierago Flores. This is Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.